Hello crocheters, welcome back to Oh Me Oh My Crochet. Today we'll begin making a Sunburst Granny Square cardigan. This will be part one of a series of tutorials. I'll go through layout options, how to make the granny square, how to seam it together, and then how to add the trim. For this project, you'll need some 4-weight acrylic yarn. I'm using I Love This yarn in the color Royal Gorge and Lion Brand's Basic Stitch yarn in the color Turquoise Heather. You'll also need a 5mm hook, scissors, and a darning needle. First, let's look at how this cardigan is constructed. I first made 63 Sunburst Granny Squares using the following layout. Each square is about 4 3/4 of an inch by 4 3/4 of an inch. For reference, I'm 5'4" with a 36-inch bust and typically wear a size small or medium. There are tons of granny square layouts out there, but this is what worked for me. Keep in mind these are suggested guidelines for other sizes, but ultimately you can make your cardigan body and sleeves as long and wide as you want. You can also change the size of each square by changing your hook size, adding an extra round, or changing the number of double crochets you start with. Now that you know how many squares you need, let's get started. I'll show you 2 different ways to start this project. Option 1 is to begin with a magic ring. Then begin working 16 double crochet in the magic ring. If you don't like the magic ring, option 2 is to create a slip knot. Then chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then slip stitch into the first chain. This will create that circle that you'll work your first round into. Next, you chain 1 and begin working your 16 double crochets into that ring. I'm going to continue on by working into this magic ring and working those 16 double crochets. So that is double crochet number 3, 4, and so on. And 16. Double check, count to make sure you have the right number of double crochets. And then pull that yarn tail tight to close your ring. Then slip stitch to the top of the second double crochet to join. To begin round 2, chain 2. Now in that very same stitch, you're going to work a puff stitch. For a puff stitch, you'll yarn over, insert your hook in the stitch, pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, pull up a loop. Now you have 5. Yarn over, insert your hook in the same stitch, pull up a loop. Now you have 7. So then you'll yarn over and pull through all 7 loops. Then chain 1. You'll work this puff stitch and chain 1 15 more times for a total of 16 puff stitches. So in the next stitch, begin your next puff stitch. All right, we have 2 more puff stitches to go. So work your 15th puff stitch. and your final puff stitch in this stitch right here. Chain 1, and then end with a slip stitch between the first 2 puff stitches to join. To start round 3, we'll chain 2. In this round, we'll be working in the chain spaces between those puff stitches. Beginning in that first chain space, you'll work a 4 double crochet cluster. So yarn over, insert your hook in the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook in the same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook in the same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook in the same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through all 5 loops on your hook, and then chain 2. You'll repeat this 15 more times in the chain spaces. We'll work a cluster stitch and then chain 2, cluster stitch, chain 2, and so on. Pause here and meet me once you make it to the last cluster stitch. All right, now we'll work our 16th cluster stitch. End with a chain 2 and then slip stitch between the first 2 cluster stitches to join. Now for round 4, we are going to begin turning this circle into a square, and we'll start with the first corner of the square. So start by chaining 4. The first chain 4 will count as a treble crochet. And then in that chain space, work 2 treble crochets, and then chain 2, and work 3 treble crochets in that same chain space. Now we'll begin working side number 1, and we'll be working in the chain spaces only. In the first chain space, you'll work 3 double crochet, in the next chain space, you'll work 3 half double crochet, and in the next chain space, work 3 double crochet. Now we'll work our second corner in the next chain space. So work 3 treble crochet, chain 2, and another 3 treble crochet, all in that same chain space. To make side number 2, we'll again work in chain spaces only. In our first one, we'll work 3 double crochet, in the second chain space, we'll work 3 half double crochet, and in the third chain space, we'll work 3 double crochet. Now we're ready for corner number 3. So in that next chain space, work 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble. In the next chain space, work 3 double crochet, then in the next chain space, 3 half double crochet, and in the third, 3 double crochet. For our final corner in that chain space, work 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble. Now finish off with side number 4, working 3 double crochet in the first chain space, 3 half double crochet in the second, and 3 double crochet in the third. Now find the chain 4 and slip stitch to the top of the chain to join. At this point, you can cut your yarn and weave in your ends. Measure your square. Mine is just under 5 inches. The next step, which I highly recommend, is to block your squares. You can wet block them or steam block them. It will make seaming together your squares later much easier and less frustrating. I spray mine with water until they are damp, then pin them on a blocking mat. Once they're in place, I spray them again for good measure, leave them to dry, and then I'm left with much more defined squares. That's the end of this tutorial. Go make some squares and check out part 2 where I'll go over how to seam the squares together, add some sleeves, some trim, and the cuffs. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on social media. Bye!